I will be talking about two separate fires, and they kind of both play into the history of Black people. The first one is the fire that happened on April 28, 2025, with Clayborn Temple Historical Church in Memphis. And that had ties into the civil rights movement. And then the second fire happened just a month later on May 15, 2025. And that's the Nottoway Plantation fire that happened in White Castle, Louisiana, at the Annabella Mansion, which they had turned into a wedding venue that had ties into Black history as far as slavery. So let me get into the first part of the video with Claiborne Temple Church.
A part of Memphis history goes up in flames, and an investigation is now underway into a massive fire at the historic Clayborn Temple. It stood in the heart of the Bluff City for more than a century. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Alex Coleman. WREG's Tia McKenzie brings us details on this historic loss and what the sanctuary meant to the Memphis community and beyond.
Tears fill the eyes of several onlookers at the historic Clayborn Temple on Monday as firefighters work to battle the blaze.
This building means something to people all over the world because of what happened here.
Claiborne Temple was officially named a national treasure in 2018. A fire investigation is now underway after Memphis police called the fire department just after 1:30 a.m.
It's a place that not only changed Memphis, but changed the world. Those iconic I Am a Man posters were strategized and put together right in this space.
Dr. Martin Luther King planned to march with sanitation workers from Clayborn Temple before his assassination at the Lorraine Motel. His wife, Coretta Scott King, led strikers and thousands of supporters in his place.
We have spent a lot of time and money to protect this building and to protect this space and to bring her back to life. But this morning, I'm just grieving for all the people who were married in the building or whose mama had their funeral here or thinking about Larry Payne.
The National Civil Rights Museum released a statement in part saying Clayborn Temple will rise again because its foundation was never merely physical. It was spiritual. It was communal. And that foundation cannot be burned. The fire department is working with ATF to figure out how the fire started.
We'll have to have an engineer look at the building to see if what you see standing can be left to stand.
The sacred building has been around for 133 years, serving as a sanctuary for many. Reporting for your news leader in downtown Memphis, Tia McKenzie, WRAG News Channel 3.
As you can see in that video, Clayborn Temple Church did play a role in Black history, and it's unfortunate that it did catch on fire and burn down. I'm going to go over some other information to kind of give you more of a backstory to why Martin Luther King was at that particular church to get that march going for the sanitation workers. I'm not going to read over this whole article, just the part that kind of gives you the backstory of this particular church and what it meant to Black history. King was drawn to Memphis in 1968 to support some 1,300 predominantly Black sanitation workers who went on strike to protest inhumane treatment. 2 workers had been crushed in a garbage compactor in 1964, but the faulty equipment had not been replaced. On February the 1st of that year, 2 more men, Echo Cole, 36, and Robert Walker, 30, was crushed in a garbage truck compactor. The 2 were contract workers, so they did not qualify for workers' compensation and had no life insurance. Workers then went on strike, seeking to unionize and fight for higher pay and safe working conditions. City officials declared the stoppage illegal and arrested scores of strikers and protesters. Clayborn Temple hosted nightly meetings during the strike, and the movement iconic I Am a Man posters was made in its basement. The temple was also a staging point for marches to City Hall, including one on March 28, 1968, that was led by King and turned violent with police and protesters clash on Beale Street. One person was killed. When marchers returned to the temple, police fired tear gas into inside and people broke some of the stained glass windows to escape. King promised to lead a second peaceful march in Memphis, but he was shot by a sniper while standing on the balcony of the Lauren Motel on April 4th. Now I'm going to get into the second part of the video with the Nottoway Plantation fire.
This was Nottoway Plantation in White Castle around 4 o'clock this afternoon, a few hours after fires broke out in the South Wing. But 3 hours later, and despite the efforts of dozens of firefighters, this was the scene, a skeleton of the building that's been standing in White Castle since 1859. Good evening, friends. Thanks for joining us here at 10. I'm Elizabeth Vowell. The plantation, of course, has a complex history, so as you can imagine, its destruction today has stoked a range of emotions tonight. Still, it's a popular tourist spot for Iberville Parish, hosting events throughout the year. Perry Robinson has been out there all afternoon. He's joining us live. And Perry, you basically watched this all come crumbling down tonight.
That's right, Liz. We originally got out here around 3 p.m. this afternoon, and we were actually here to witness the exact moment that the roof actually caved in out here at this building. So let me step out of the shot so that you can see exactly what it looks like. Again, crews are continuously still trying to put water out on this building. Again, what you said earlier, the destruction of this building has brought out a lot of mixed reactions from people here in White Castle. As the sun set, dozens of people stood still as a massive fire consumed the historic Nottoway Plantation.
I'm like, okay, it might be a little fire. I didn't expect this.
According to the parish president, the fire broke out around 2 p.m. in the south wing of the building.
Some staff members stated that they had gone into the museum on the second floor and there was smoke. They went in and exited the museum, and at that time, when they returned, the whole room was in flames.
Built in the 1800s, the site has been a staple within the White Castle community. But for others, it's a reminder about Louisiana's dark past. Like many plantation sites today, Nottoway was a draw for tourists and events. It hosted a wedding just last week.
This is really a detriment to the community.
One person we spoke to said they have never seen a fire this intense.
In my 34 years of life, I can't say that I've seen something as bad as this.
Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but within a few hours, the entire building was destroyed. Now, Liz, I did get a chance to talk to the new owners of this building, and they told me that they actually just purchased this building not even a full year ago. It actually happened back last fall. The couple, they live in Natchitoches, and they told me that they are extremely overwhelmed over what happened. And as of now, they are unsure what exactly that they plan to do at this spot. For now, reporting in White Castle, Perry Robinson, WAFB 9 News.
I just found it ironic that these two buildings that play a part in Black history kind of went the same way just a month apart. With the Clayborn Temple Church, that had more of a positive effect on Black lives as far as doing the separate but equal era, the civil rights movement. That is a place, a beacon of hope for Black people, that they can come together, pray to God, they can come together, celebrate, happy events, celebrate marriages, celebrate different things like that in the Black community, because they had nowhere else they can go during those times. A place that they can have meetings about what they're going to do as far as the civil rights, to have their freedom, different things like that. And then for it to end up burning up, in a fire in April of 2025. And then a month later, a building that played a part in Black history, which had more of a negative impact on Black people, was the Nottoway Plantation. That was a place of sorrow for Black people. That was a place of hardship for Black people. That was a place where they had no hope, where they felt they had no future. A place where they was forced to work, forced to do all this labor at no pay. The house itself, the mansion itself, the Annabella mansion, was like the biggest mansion during that time in that area in Louisiana. And they had to work on a sugar plantation, which, from my understanding, was very hard labor during that time. They're working in the hot sun. They're, with no pay. The way you look at that mansion and how beautiful that mansion looked, because I'm not going to say it did not look beautiful. It did look beautiful, but the sorrow that came with that mansion. The slave quarters was in the back of the mansion, which they probably tore down. Those living conditions was hell. They was packed in like sardines. They didn't have freedom to move around like the slave master did in the mansion. They're crammed on top of each other. The food they ate was more or less scraps. So they just had suffered on so many levels, while the family in this mansion with so many rooms that they really didn't need all those rooms, but just to show how much wealth they had. And the wealth they had came from the labor of the slaves, of the black slaves they had on that plantation. If it wasn't for those black slaves, they would have not have had that wealth. When the Civil War started and the owner of the mansion, he sent his excuse me, he sent his family away, but he stayed to try to protect the mansion. The mansion ended up surviving the Civil War, but as soon as slavery was over, he ended up losing the plantation because he could no longer afford it. So that shows you a lot of wealth that these people had during that time came from the labor, the forced labor of black people. They needed those black slaves in order to have those in order to have that wealth. But as soon as slavery ended, a lot of them lost their wealth. And so that's why I found it kind of ironic that these two buildings that played a part in Black history, one more on a positive note, and then the second on a negative note, ended up burning down a month apart. So I just want to share this with you. My name is Del Marche. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.